Okay, are we ready to roll? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's meeting of the Campaign Finance Board. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 11th, 2017 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Next, I have a very brief report. This week, we marked a significant milestone in our progress towards Election Day on November 7th, 2017. I am pleased to report that 211 candidates have chosen to participate in the Public Matching Funds Program for the 2017 elections. The candidates faced a deadline of past Monday to file their paperwork with the CFB to become program participants. This outstanding level of candidate participation in the program demonstrates the strength of New York City's small donor matching programs in encouraging fair and equitable elections. Candidates from across the political spectrum and all corners of the city recognize that the small donor matching funds give them the best chance of getting their message out regardless of what office they are seeking. At this time, I'll turn to CFB Executive Director Amy Loprest for her report.
Thank you. Last Thursday, we announced the two sponsor groups for our debate program. The debate program run by this Campaign Finance Board has been a critical way for New York City voters to learn about candidates since 1997. All candidates for citywide office who join the city's voluntary public matching funds program are required to participate in debates before each election if they meet certain nonpartisan objective debate criteria that are contained in the law. Two debates are held before each of the primary and the general election for mayor, controller, or public advocate. The second debate is a leading contender debate, and leading contenders are determined by separate nonpartisan criteria agreed upon by the CFB and our sponsors. I'm happy to announce that we have two really great sponsor groups who have created robust plans for incorporating the voices of New Yorkers into these public conversations about our city's future, and some of those public conversations have already started. The first group will be handling all of the first round primary and general election debates, is headed by Spectrum News New York One. It includes WNYC, Politico, Citizens Union, Civic Hall, Intelligence Squared US, and the Latino Leadership Institute. The second group, which is producing all of the leading contender debates for the primary and general elections, is headed by WCBS TV Channel 2, and it includes WLNY TV 1055, News Radio 88, 1010 Wins, New York Daily News, The Common Cause New York, City University of New York, the New York Immigration Coalition, and Rock the Vote. The first mayoral primary debate for the Republican primary candidates will be held on August 16th at the CUNY Graduate Center studio, and the primary debates will continue through August and early September. The first mayoral debate for the general election will take place on Tuesday, October 10th at Symphony Space. The final general election debate in the mayor's race will be held on Wednesday, November 1st at the CUNY Graduate Center studio.
Thank you. The agenda has changed a little bit since its first publication. We have now only three candidates who are not appearing, whose penalties will be considered in a moment when we go into deliberations. And I believe we have one candidate who is appearing, and that is Pedro Alvarez.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I better start that again. We have three candidates who are not appearing, whose penalties we'll be considering in deliberations, and one candidate who is appearing. The appearing candidate is Mr. Pedro Alvarez, and so I'll call on him or his representative at this time. Why don't you come up and have a seat at the table? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
The staff from the CFB will go first, and then we'll ask you to proceed.
Good morning, Chair Schaefer, Executive Director Low Press, members of the board. My name is Cameron Ferrante. I'm an Associate Counsel for the CFB. With me today is Joel Babb, a CFB auditor. And before the board is the matter of the Pedro Alvarez campaign in the 2013 primary election for City Council District 16. The candidate was a participant in the program and received $92,400 in public funds. CFB staff recommends the board find that the campaign committed the following violations of the Act and board rules and assess penalties according to the 2013 penalty guidelines. Failing to provide bank statements, failing to report transactions, failing to demonstrate compliance with cash receipts reporting and documentation requirements, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for receipts or disbursements, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, accepting an over-the-limit contribution, failing to report and document in-kind contributions, failing to demonstrate that spending was in furtherance of the campaign, making impermissible post-election expenditures. CFB staff further recommends that the board find that the campaign must repay public funds. The campaign contests these recommended violations, penalties, and public funds repayment. Thanks.
Sorry. Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Angel Cruz. I've recently been retained by the campaign to make an appearance today. As we know, the whole purpose of matching funds is to encourage those non-professional politicians to run for office and to hopefully get a legislative branch of government that's reflective of all the people. The campaign to elect Pedro Alvarez was a grassroots effort, funded by matching funds, and in a field of 7, he came in second, losing only to the machine candidate. The violations alleged are not rooted in any fraud or misappropriation of funds, but rooted instead in the hyper-technical rules that are easily lost upon any non-professional campaign. Most of the violations alleged are for not properly providing documentation. It violates my sense of fairness if the board were to recover close to $30,000 in campaign funds because the campaign staff were inexperienced and failed to properly provide the necessary documents. I believe given the opportunity to remedy this, now that I've been retained, we can provide what is necessary to remedy those violations. So what I'm asking the board to do is hold your determination in abeyance for at least 30 days to allow me to get the necessary records to then complete the filing and ultimately reduce the amount of penalties and repayment. I know that it's kind of on the last hour, given how gracious the staff has been with the campaign. You know, this took place some time ago. But because of my late entry into this, I believe that I could, in all fairness, reduce the violations, provide the necessary documents, and in the end, remove and amend the report, remove the violations, and ultimately reduce what they are. So I'm just asking for the grace of the board to be exercised in a way in which would enable me to do that. For the rest, I pray.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board?
Do you have any position on this?
I mean, I'd just say that the campaign has had the opportunity to provide the documentation requested to reduce these penalties in both the draft audit report and the penalty notice. And in scheduling this meeting or their appearance, they never requested the opportunity for an adjournment to produce additional documentation.
All right, well, we're going to go into deliberations on this and the other matters for which candidates did not appear. And when we finish deliberation, we'll come back and let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So do you want to know, we're going to announce the other matters under deliberation that you're going to deliberate. 'Cause
When we return from deliberations, we will announce our decisions on all of the pending matters, not just the one for which the candidate appeared.
You want to have a staff member to come and announce what the board is going to be deliberating on? I don't know which staff member is going to do that. No, sorry. Sorry, it's the person who's not in the room. That's like one guy. Sorry.
It's just hazing. Good morning again. Chair Schaefer, Executive Director, Low Press, members of the board. My name is Cameron Ferrante, Associate Counsel for the CFB. Before the board is the matter of the Anthony Testaverde campaign in the 2013 general election for City Council District 46. The candidate was a participant in the program and received $51,226 in public matching funds. CFB staff recommends the board find that the campaign committed the following violations of the Act and board rules and assess penalties according to the 2013 penalty guidelines: failing to demonstrate compliance with cash receipts reporting and documentation requirements, failing to report transactions, failing to demonstrate compliance with subcontractor reporting and documentation requirements, failing to file a disclosure statement, failing to respond to the initial documentation request, and filing a late response to the draft audit report. CFB staff further recommends that the board find that the campaign must repay public funds. The campaign contests the recommended violations, penalties, and public funds repayment. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Dana Caillou. I'm Senior Associate Counsel for the CFB. Before the board is the matter of the Dan Garodnick campaign in the 2013 election cycle for City Council District 4. The candidate was a participant in the program and did not elect to receive public funds. CFB staff recommends that the board find the campaign committed 10 violations of the Act and board rules based on failing to provide merchant account statements, failing to report transactions, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for disbursements, accepting over-the-limit contributions, accepting over-the-limit doing business contributions, failing to document in-kind contributions, failing to demonstrate compliance with intermediary reporting and documentation requirements, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, late response to the draft audit report and initial document request, and commingling campaign funds with funds accepted for a different election. The campaign does not contest these violations and waived its right to a hearing.
Good morning. My name is Bethany Persky, Senior Counsel for the CFB. Before the board is the matter of the Reshma Sajani campaign in the 2013 primary election for Public Advocate. The candidate was a participant in the program and received $1,346,424 in public funds. CFB staff recommends that the board find that the campaign committed the following 9 violations: failing to report transactions, failing to file daily pre-election disclosure statements, failing to demonstrate compliance with subcontractor reporting and documentation requirements, accepting over-the-limit contributions, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, failing to document transactions, failing to demonstrate compliance with intermediary reporting and documentation requirements, failing to demonstrate that spending was in furtherance of the campaign, and making impermissible post-election expenditures. CFB staff also recommends that the board find that this campaign is entitled to receive a post-election public funds payment and that any penalties assessed be deducted from the amount of that payment. Thank you.
Okay, now we will recess for deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, welcome back. The board has deliberated on the matters before today, and we'll start with the one for which we had an appearance. The candidate is Pedro Alvarez. In response to the request for an adjournment, the request is granted, Mr. Cruz, under the following terms. First, let me say, some of us up here are lawyers, and we know the experience of being retained at the last minute. And so, in large part, our decision to adjourn is a courtesy to you under the circumstances. But also, as a board, we try to be fair to all of the candidates. We would prefer candidates to be prompt and responsive as we do our audits and approach the penalty phase. But we also do appreciate the fact that many of the candidates are first-time candidates. They are people from the community, and this can sometimes appear a little daunting to them. Having said that, though, we're going to put this over till the next meeting of the board, which is almost exactly a month. I think it's July 13th. And the staff and board will consider any materials that you submit up to 1 week before the board meeting. We really would prefer not to be caught, with new material at the board meeting. So you have, in effect, 3 weeks to try to drum up whatever materials that you can and to make whatever arguments to the staff that you can. They will, I'm sure, consider. There's no guarantee that there's going to be a change in their recommendations, but we leave it to you to get as much material as you can and make the best arguments that you can, and the board will put it back on the calendar for July 13th. Okay? Okay, very good. Well, you have a deadline, and it's a firm deadline. All deliberate speed has some vague connotations given the history of the desegregation battles in this country. So we wish you well, but that's the deadline. Okay, turning to the other matters that for which candidates did not appear, I will go through them item by item. So the first, the candidate was Reshma Saujani, and here are the violations and the penalty amounts. Violation number 1, failing to report transactions. The board has approved the recommended penalty of $228. Number 2, failing to file daily pre-election disclosure statements. The penalty is $200. Number 3, failing to demonstrate compliance with subcontractor reporting and documentation requirements. The penalty is $300. And number 4, accepting over-the-limit contributions. The penalty is $625. Number 5, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships. The penalty is $550. Number 6, failing to document transactions. The penalty is $1,200. 7, failing to demonstrate compliance with intermediary reporting and documentation requirements. The penalty is $500. 8, failing to demonstrate that spending was in furtherance of the campaign. The penalty is $1,145. Number 9, making impermissible post-election expenditures. The penalty is $2,760. There is a total penalty, therefore, for that campaign of $7,508. And there will be there is a public funds payment due of $32,262. So the total payment, that is the public funds minus the penalties, will be $24,754. Next, we turn to the campaign of Daniel Gorodnik. The following violations and penalties have been found by the board after deliberations. 1, failing to provide merchant account statements, $500. 2, failing to report transactions, $829. 3, failing to demonstrate compliance with reporting requirements for disbursements, $250. 4, accepting over-the-limit contributions, $2,950. 5, accepting over-the-limit doing business contributions, $8,000. 6, failing to document an in-kind contribution, $100. 7, failing to demonstrate compliance with intermediary reporting and documentation requirements, $1,400. 8, late response to draft audit report, $1,868. 9, commingling campaign funds with personal or business funds and/or funds accepted for a different election, violation, but no penalty. The total recommended penalties for that campaign are $15,897. I might point out that the campaign did not contest these penalties, but the board in its deliberations did make some adjustments as we felt that there were a couple modifications that were appropriate. Finally, the campaign of Anthony Testaverde. After deliberations, the board finds the following violations and imposes the following penalties. 1, failing to demonstrate compliance with cash receipts reporting and documentation requirements, $46. 2, failing to report transactions, $53. 3, failing to demonstrate compliance with subcontractor reporting and documentation requirements, $100. 4, failing to file a disclosure statement, $750. 5, failing to respond to the initial documentation request, $1,500. 6, late response to the draft audit report, $500. The total penalties, therefore, amount to $2,949.
Good. You're done.
With respect to the public funds repayment, the Testaverde campaign has 2 recommended public funds repayment obligations, but will only be liable for payment of the larger of the 2. First, a repayment in the amount of $18,846.36, for which the candidate and the committee will be jointly and severally liable. This amount represents the committee's most recent documented bank balance. Second, a repayment as a result of the failure to document sufficient qualified expenditures. The campaign's liability will be $13,513, while the candidate will be jointly and severally liable for payment of the $13,389 of this amount.
Just to clarify, the $18,000 is the balance as of April 2016, and that balance may be lower, so it's whatever the final bank balance is, as I understand. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
So I move that we approve the penalties, the public funds repayment, and the public funds payment just read by the chair.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Okay, and then are we going to? I will entertain now a motion to go into executive session to discuss some pending litigation and other matters. After the executive session, we will resume to consider a motion to adopt final rules. A motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We're now going into executive session. Thank you. All right, well, we're back in public session. We only have one more item on our agenda, and that is to approve the draft rules that were previously noticed, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do you want to say anything?
Would you like to say something?
I have objections to the rules. No, I have a short, just formality. Good morning, Chair Schaefer and members of the board. On April 13, 2017, the board adopted for public comment several proposed amendments to its rules. The proposed amendments were published in the City Record on April 20, 2017, and the board held a public hearing on them on May 25, 2017. No testimony was presented at the hearing and no public comments were received. Board staff recommends that the board adopt these amendments to the board's rules regarding timing of deposits of cash contributions, restrictions on return of contributions, transfers of funds received for other elections, rescission of certification, contributions made and intermediated by individuals doing business with the city, contribution documentation, proof of compliance with the Conflict of Interest Board, and public funds payments in special elections. These amendments are made to conform with local laws number 167, 173, 184, 185, 186, 188, 189, 192, and 193 for the year 2016. If the board is prepared to take action, the board staff now recommends that the board adopt the proposed additions to the board's rules as final.
Thank you. Well, I jumped the gun. The motion has been made and seconded, and I guess that constitutes our discussion of it. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you very much. We now stand adjourned.